Great evening, great evening, great evening.
Great evening, everybody.
That is Tiffany Bonnier talking about new seasons, and we want to welcome you in to yet another episode of Begin Again. I'm Dr. Ray Johnson. I happen to be an author, educator, and certified leadership and relationship development coach. Honey, why don't you tell them who you are?
Well, good evening, everybody. I am Alitash Johnson, also known as Tish. I am a worshiper, a writer, and a woman in love with this man.
I happen to be a man that is also in love with this woman, and this is indeed Begin Again. We say it this way: it's a much needed conversation of necessary endings, woo, but also new beginnings. And sometimes new beginnings can actually be that way, just like that sometimes. And you get caught up right in your throat, which takes us right your throat, which could take us right into what some of our conversations are going to be on tonight. You know, we're going to spend some time tonight talking about the importance of couples actually staying together, being together, what's important in the relationship, changing you, changing me, or who's changing who. The importance of what prayer means in relationships. Let me say that again: changing you, changing who, changing me, the importance of prayer in relationships. And so when you just hear about that, I mean, there's a lot in all of that. And before we jump right in terms of, you know, how important it is for couples to actually pray in their relationship with God being at the center. Do you think, let me just ask this question early before I get into it. Is it the spouse's job to change the other spouse?
Of course not. You can't. I was just talking to my daughter earlier about something, and I remember hearing the Lord address a situation with me, saying that I couldn't change that person's mind.
Right.
We can't force somebody to change.
Right.
It has to be an internal desire to change.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. It's got to be an internal desire to actually change. And so before you even get started in it, I want people to understand and to know, listen, don't spend a whole lot of time trying to think that you can change people. Look like we got somebody in there that is popping in on tonight. I see Sister Sanita Dominionaire Price. Good to see you, ma'am. Hi, not sure who this is right here, but they're in a lot on tonight. Look like it's AI. We'll let AI be on tonight. And so just glad that you're in. As you're watching tonight, let us know where you're watching from and that sort of thing. And so that being important, dear, I'm going to just jump right in and people can kind of catch up and get in where they fit in on tonight. Tonight, we're talking about changing or being changed, changing you, changing me, changing who's changing in the relationship, the importance of prayer in terms of the dynamic of us being engaged with each other, one to another. So having said that, when it comes to relationships, we often hear you can't change a man or can't change a woman. Do you believe that to be true?
Yes, I said in the beginning, you can't change a person. They have to want to change. It's, the Lord can change a heart.
Yeah.
But for us to you can't beat a person into change. You can't make somebody submit to change.
Yeah.
The change has to come from an internal desire or a love for another person to say, I want to change this part about me or change this habit about me or change something because I want to save the relationship or because I want the relationship to be better. But us coming in with the mindset that I'm coming in to change them, I'm going to make them change.
Yeah.
You can't make anybody change.
You certainly cannot. You cannot make anybody change. People have got to be able to change on their own. And so questions arise. Do people actually change?
Yes, we're constantly changing.
Are there boundaries and barriers that prevent people from changing? And if so, what will it take? In your opinion, so do people actually change? I would differ from you a little bit to say, no, people don't really change.
We change our minds every day.
Yeah, sometimes we change, but that's part of what the problem is relationally sometimes because we get to change our mind thinking that's something. I'm getting into my stuff a little bit too early.
But
thinking that grass is green. Yeah, the nature of a person. Does the nature of a person really actually change? Are there boundaries and barriers that prevent people from changing? If so, what will it take? I kind of answer the question by this way and says there are some who argue circumstances, situations, crucibles, and crises will force people to change. If it is true that oftentimes the nature of a person rarely changes, that people are who they are. Once they kind of get to about age 12 or 13, they get set in a particular way. And sometimes it takes situations, circumstances, crucibles, and crises before a person can actually change. This is why it is critically important that you actually take inventory, stock, and interview persons before you get into covenant relations with them, because a lot of times there are a lot of what we would call red flags that are in the dating process that we tend to ignore, that couples actually just kind of blaze and roll right through, talking about, well, I can change him, or I see potential in her, or I can work with that. And that's on both sides, male and female. And yet the reality is our response to these things produces the change. So let me back up really quickly. Circumstances, situations, crucibles, and crises are what I would call heaven's means and mechanism whereby which it causes us to change and conditions us to be prepared to actually be in covenant with another person. And so our response to those is what produces change in us. And our responses heavily depends on our prayer lives. It depends on how much a person listens to the voice of the Holy Spirit. And this is an important point, because a lot of times people can pray. If you can see our t-shirts, let me see if I can move mine out of the way a little bit. If you can see couples who pray, stay together, that kind of thing. And so a lot of times, honey, people forget that prayer is a two-way street.
It is.
A lot of times we spend a lot of our time praying, telling God what we want, rather than us listening to what God's desires are and what it is that he wants from us. What are your thoughts about that?
It's true. We come in with a long list of things. God, I need you here. God, I need you here. God, do this. God, do that.
Yeah.
And we forget that time of prayer and that time that we set aside for God is time that he wants to spend with us.
Yeah.
And he wants to talk to us as well as we talk to him.
Yeah.
In a relationship, if one person is doing all the talking all the time and you can't get a word in, you start to feel devalued.
You are.
And feel like, I don't really need to be here. They're having their own show by themselves. And I wonder sometimes if God just sits there and watches us carry on and carry on. Not that praying is a bad thing, because it is absolutely not. We should pray.
Yes.
But we have to be mindful that God is, not only is he a spirit, he's a father. Yes. And he, a father who loves his children and wants to hear from his children. Absolutely. How do you feel when your children ignore you and don't talk to you? I know as a mother, I want to hear my children speak to me.
Yes.
I want to know that my children care enough to call me or to hug me, or to say good morning. But we treat God like this absent being.
Yes.
That, he's so far off that we can't have a communication time with him. Sometimes we don't understand how to receive from him. And that could be some of the issue when it comes to our prayer life.
Absolutely. Sister Nita says only God can do it. Only God can bring about the change in your significant other, your spouse. We want to just say early on tonight, stop trying to change your spouse or significant other. Work on changing you in terms of how you are responding to them. Really what God does, dear, is he uses the marital relationship and the marital covenant of one to another to produce what I would say the fruit of the Spirit in our lives, because there's no one that can irk your nerves like your spouse. I just want you to look straight ahead.
But you're perfect.
I'll make sure I got your check for you after. Matter of fact, all she's gonna say is, "Yeah, go and give me that," because this is a bill over here that we taking care of. So, having said that, a lot of times couples, they get to thinking that our society at large, I would say it better that way, our society at large oftentimes does not think about how important the marriage relationship is. And so the question tonight is, should couples and spouses try to change each other? I think we've already answered that and said no. Now, here's the next question. What prevents couples or a spouse from changing? And so we've already talked a little bit about that on tonight. And so before we get started, I want us to understand and know how important the marriage relationship is. And just for a few minutes, I want you to just take a quick second, take a look at this.
The Bible says that husbands and wives should not separate lightly. It's not because marriage doesn't hurt, but because from the very beginning, God never treated marriage as a contract that can be canceled at any time. When God joins two people together, he is not performing a legal transaction, but establishing a covenant on a spiritual level. The Gospel of Matthew puts it plainly: what God has joined together, let no one separate. This isn't moral pressure, but a definition of the very nature of marriage. From God's perspective, marriage is not a relationship that should end the moment it becomes difficult, but one that is proven in the middle of the storm. The Bible even uses an extreme comparison to explain marriage: Christ and the church. And we all know one thing, the church is not perfect. Yet Jesus never walked away because of failure, weakness, or betrayal. He chose to stay. He chose forgiveness. He chose restoration. This is not a demand for perfection, but a definition of what faithful love truly is. The most dangerous moment is when separation gets packaged as an easy exit. Because love is never proven when things feel comfortable, but in the moment when you could leave and choose to stay. Of course, this does not mean tolerating harm. God does not call people to endure abuse. He gives protection, boundaries, and wisdom. But it also means this: we don't abandon a covenant meant to be guarded simply because it feels too hard. Real love does not run away. It takes root, it bears weight, it stands firm. If you believe marriage is not something to escape from, but something worth protecting, type amen in the comments. Share this video with someone who is struggling. They might need to hear this today.
Wow. I think that right there is right on it. I think that just covered just about the whole gamut of what we would want to say. The covenantal connection of marriage is not something that you break easy. It's representative of Christ and the church, but yet our culture today looks at it as some kind of piece of paper, contractual relationships in terms of what you do for me, I do for you, what I do for you, you do for me. And it becomes very transactional rather than covenantal. And I think it was critically important, at least from my view, to actually mention that God has not called us to abuse, to deal with abuse and suffering. And I know that both of us have had abuses and suffering in our own perspectives and in terms of our perspective, but we want you to realize and know that rather than trying to change someone, work on changing you, which is why it's important for you to kind of spend the time getting prepared so that you can reduce some of the stress that comes with engaging, particularly in what I would call second time or next time around relationships. And so tonight we're answering the question, should couples and spouses change each other? And then if not, then what prevents couples or a spouse from changing? And I'm going to jump right in early on tonight and start with this one, ignorance. Now, I don't want anybody to be offended with what I'm saying when I mention the term ignorance. What I simply mean is this. When we say ignorance, most have never really had healthy models, not modules, but models of love and relationships. Most people have not had healthy models of love and relationships. So therefore, they lack really the skills that are needed to actually build a healthy relationship. Go ahead, dear.
Oh, that was quick.
Anything that you want to add to that while
to the healthy models?
Yeah, while I fix the spelling of it. Go ahead.
Well, you're right. So, we often want to pattern our relationships after something. Yeah. After, for our generation, the Cosby family, was the image, the perfect image of the Black family.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you wanted the successful couple, both having a engaging career, raising your children together, having those funny moments together. But there was a model that we watched that we thought that maybe I can have this too.
Yeah.
Same time, I know what's going on tonight.
I get you.
At the same time, a lot of folk didn't have the perfect two-family,
two-parent family
model to look at. And so you had the blended dynamic that came in there, and all different kinds of models to look at. And so when you don't have a healthy model, maybe you had a painful relationship as you grew up, and that model kind of skewed your image. Some said, I will never have a marriage or a family like I grew up in. And you go to the other side and you make all of these statements and vows saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And they get caught in this kind of trap and cycle. Every time something looks like what they went into, they run. And they don't see really how to get to the other side of it. And at the same time, they're good marriages, they're good models. Yeah. But the good models didn't pass on how to be that good model.
Right.
Because sometimes we saw that good model, but didn't see the battles behind this, under the surface.
Let me just talk about that just for a second. See, a lot of times, even with people like I did, I grew up in a house where, and so did you, we grew up in households where there was love and companionship and partnership and working together and biblical ideas, biblical, I would say, paradigms. That's a better way to say that. Biblical paradigms of how couples are to work together and to actually love each other in raising a family. But a lot of times we can try to reduplicate that in our own experiences without understanding. Number one, times are different, yet God's word is universal and cuts across the ages of time. But how to apply that is what becomes different.
Right.
And a lot of times we can try to apply what I would say a 1920s model in a 2020 dynamic. And so without understanding about how Paul says that he became all things to all men that he might win some, there are some changes that you need to make in how you apply what you saw from the 1920s experience. And so the conditioning of things is a little bit different. The dynamics are a little bit different. Right. Even the topography of where we are contextually is a little bit different. And so a lot of times you had people like us who ended up in relationships with people. I know they can't see on that.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, it's different. That's the image of, you know, somebody watching the phone. Yeah. So what I started to say is couples like us who are second time around relationships, well, we were connected to people who didn't share the same value, didn't come from the same dynamic and background, so that when crisis hit, we're thinking of how do we apply and come together with scriptures, and the others are looking out for self-interest, which then can lead to being pulled apart in terms of relationships. So when I say ignorance, modeling is so important because it applies on both sides of that. Go ahead, give your first one.
My first one would be hang-ups.
Hang-ups.
Yeah, hang-ups and what we hold on to. So we can have a hang-up about, you know, what marriage should be. We can have a hang-up about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, what we're going to allow be said to us and what we won't allow be said to us.
Oh, wow.
But we can have a whole lot of hang-ups when we come into the relationship that maybe we haven't fully processed. And when you don't fully process something or you don't process it correctly, it can halt your relationship or stop you from really the change that we're really talking about is that change in becoming one as a family, as this new family that's been formed as a result of coming together. And so when you come, it's like the Bible says that the husband leaves the father and the mother and cleaves to the wife. Right. That cleaving process is not a quick fix kind of automatic process because you slept with that person. That cleaving, you're hanging on to that person. You're going to that person first. You're not running to mom or running to dad every time there's a problem or running to them to get the fix or running to still get their approval. The time for getting your parents' approval by the time you get married is over. But some are still caught there. And that's when you hear mama's boy or, this or daddy's. Those are good. Yeah, but, they're not evil.
Because you was showing up and daddy's girl. Themselves. My God, today
I am.
She done took over my father. He looked for her to becoming more than me. That might be my hang up.
That's your hang up. That's your hang up. But what we hold on to, and not only is it a hang up, when we hang up our clothes, they're hanging in that closet. It can hold us up and keep us in a pattern, a holding pattern where we're marching in place, but we're going nowhere. We have these.
That's good.
These
marching in place, going nowhere.
We're holding on to what happened back then, what happened in a previous relationship, what happened when I was a kid, what happened here, because we haven't fully healed from it. So when you don't fully heal, you repeat the same thing.
That's good.
You repeat patterns, repeat cycles when you don't fully heal from something that maybe traumatized you or maybe held you back in a previous season. So those hang-ups and those hold-ups can sometimes prevent us from really becoming the one that we want to be.
What's the difference between boundaries? Because I heard you mentioned, sometimes a hang up for someone can be, well, I'm not gonna allow this to happen or allow that to happen, or I'm not going to allow someone to speak to me that way, or I'm not going to have this experience that comes from this dynamic, whether it's coming from a child or someone who is related to the other spouse and that sort of kind of thing. What's the difference between a boundary and a barrier in your mind, how you see it?
So a boundary is something you set up. So we have boundaries where things can only go so far. When you have say a pet, a dog, and you put a dog in a fence, you've created a boundary, but that boundary is to protect him, to keep him in where you know that you can get to him easily, where he's not going to go off in the street and get hit by a car. A barrier is stop somebody in place. You cannot come through. And sometimes boundaries can do that too, but the nature of putting up, I don't even know if I can really answer your question the way that I want to, but the difference is fear.
Yes.
Fear is the thing that will paralyze you.
Yes.
When you think that you're creating a boundary, what you're doing is creating a blockade, saying, I'm not going to enter in this relationship because I'm not going to feel this. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel this. And so what happens is, if you even get a hint that it might be something that you experienced before, some of it is discernment and some of it is wisdom. Mm-hmm. Other times it's just plain fear, and it stops you from engaging into something that might change your life. You've got
to know the difference between the two, because never would we tell somebody when you see that there's erratic behavior, uncontrollable behavior, irresponsible, lack of accountability behavior, and that's coming at you from an outside family member, or if it's coming at you from someone that is connected to the spouse, child, outside family member, whatever that dynamic is, you've got to be discerning the difference between whether or not this is something that can be harmful and hurtful for you because there's a lack of maturity and control that's there in their own lives, versus understanding what role does God want to have you in it. Because sometimes God will require a level of humility from you and walking with those in the dynamic that are not as mature as you are. And you might be expected to be able to show who the love of Christ is, so that that area in their lives becomes healed, so that relationships can heal. That's a whole nother show in and of itself by itself. We don't got that much time.
Yes, I just want to point out, Pastor Gladys, good evening. She says, book release date.
What does she put? I can't see it in the comments over here. I would put it up on the screen. My goodness. Book release date.
Good evening, Bishop Bailey. We see you, Sister Teresa. We see you too. Thank you for watching. Brother Jermaine Moore, brother and sister. It's good to see you, sir. God bless you.
God bless you all. God bless you.
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead. All right. So let me go ahead to number 2. What we're talking about tonight is, should couples and spouses try to change each other? We answered that question is no, only God can change. And so what prevents couples and spouses from changing? My first one was ignorance. And then her first one had a lot to do with what we would call hangups. And then sometimes we got to heal from the hangups. And then ignorance has a lot to do with trying to apply models that don't necessarily fit in the dynamic and time in which you are in, which takes me to this second one. I'm right on it. You kind of went into it ahead of time for me. I would call it idolatry. A lot of times, those of us who came from these healthy family dynamics, we make an idol out of what we have seen and what we have experienced. And then a lot of times we look outside of the dynamic that we're currently in, and we think that grass is greener on the other side. And we try to figure out how it is that I can get that person involved in my current dynamic because I saw this working in their relationship. Well, let me help you with something. Don't try to bring somebody else's stuff over into your stuff because you think you saw them at the restaurant and they were all lovey-dovey. You don't know how much they were fighting in the car. You don't know if they was cutting each other in the house while they were getting dressed to go to the restaurant on the anniversary day. We go by a lot of image, and I should have put this in here. We go a lot of image of what we see. Well, what's working for that dynamic is not always going to translate well into your dynamic. You've got to water your own gardens and water your own grass, because really all gardens and grass grows by the same thing, fertilizer. And all relationships are going to have some level of fertilizer that's in it, if you understand what I'm saying. So a lot of times we can make idols out of what we see, trying to take what we see on TV and bring it into our relationships, what we see in other couples and bring it into our relationship. We got to work on what God has us in the dynamic that you are in with your significant other, rather than trying to pick up what somebody else got going on. Go ahead. All
right. My next one, I'm using the word halt. So of course, H was my hangups and holding on to. Sometimes we hold on to soul ties and we need to let those go too. But our active attitudes, our active arguments and our attitudes can stop us from really wanting to be one with the other person, or really engaging in that process of change. An active argument is something that's unresolved. The counselors will tell you that arguments tend to be the same nature over and over again, maybe a different time, different place, different context, but the nature of that argument is the same. And what happens when you have an active argument or an unresolved issue is that one person is holding on to something that matters to them, but the other doesn't see or quite empathize and understand what that person is trying to say, or even trying to understand. And that's what causes sometimes an argument, because there's two different points of views coming at each other. One is very staunch about where they stand. The other one refuses to compromise.
Wow.
Or vice versa.
Wow.
And so you have that active argument. And so it's saying, well, I can't trust them. That's the end result of that. I can't trust them. They don't really care about me. They don't really love me because they don't understand me. And so you carry an attitude, resentment is something that builds bricks. And when you start talking about barriers, argument after argument after argument after argument, it builds up
right on up.
A fence. We call it a fence, OFF, but it really is a fence that you start to put between the two of you because you fail to communicate, fail to really embrace what the other is saying and try to understand their point of view. It is a harmful thing for somebody to think they know it all and have all the answers and can't hear. A person who is not teachable, a person who won't hear the other, is going to run that gamut out, and the other person is simply going to get quiet on them and walk away. They may be in the relationship, but they're miles away emotionally.
I like that. Might be in the relationship, but I'm miles away emotionally. Here is Sister Risa Harris saying, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. And then I'm just going to put all these up here. Big man on camera. I guess they're saying that's 200. That's 100. That's worth 500. That's worth 200. That's worth 100. I'm trying to tell you, hey, maybe it's working. Feel free to sow a seed. Let me keep moving. Halt. As a matter of fact, because you got 4, go ahead with your next one.
The next one is language. What are we saying to each other? Good. Not only what are we saying to each other, what are we saying to ourselves? Just like we talked about arguments, what do we say to ourselves when the other person doesn't understand where we're coming from? Do we say, well, I must not be valuable, or maybe I'm dumb, or maybe I don't have it? No, what are we saying to ourselves? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not satisfying them. No, we have to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Some of the language that we have to engage in is how we talk to ourselves. Spend some time with yourself and talk positively to yourself. Stop saying things are killing you. Stop saying things are beating you up, or I can't do this. Stop saying that stuff. And learn how to love on yourself with your language. And you're from a healthy source, from a healthy heart, you'll be able to speak some love language to your spouse or to your significant other. And you'll be able to build them up, because words will either build up or tear down.
Absolutely.
And we need to speak life wherever you go. And we want to be that kind of person that encourages and finds the good and not always the bad. Stop looking for the bad and start. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to complain. On the job, there's so many things that are happening. And I've adopted this phrase. You remember Finding Nemo? My kids, when that movie first came out, they watched that movie like every day. But in Finding Nemo, you have the little bluefish who has short-term memory, and she goes, just keep swimming. And sometimes even in your relationship, I did it at the job. I said, look, well, with all that's going on, we have to just keep swimming. And sometimes in the relationship, you have to just keep swimming and see what the end is going to be. It's an adventure. It's a life together. You've chosen it. You said yes. And so engage in what that course is going to take you. And our language has a lot to do with it. Make sure you take the word divorce out of your language, out of your speech, out of your mind, out of your heart. Because the minute you start speaking it, it starts to become, the seeds are planted. And yes, it is an option for you.
It becomes an option.
And especially for second and third time around relationships. You did it before, you can do it again. That's the mindset. And we want to kill that. We want to
kill off that mindset, because the statistics are 50% of even first time relationships are going to end in divorce, 65% of all second time, and that number goes up to 78% for all third time and beyond that. Now, I'm one of those that says this: by the time, if you can't make it work with 3 different people, maybe they not the issue, maybe something's going on with you, but I'm gonna just leave that alone right there if you get beyond 3. But that's just my own personal thing. Just chew the meat on that, spit out the bones. We're talking a little bit tonight about our question tonight: should couples and spouses try to change each other? We answered no emphatically to that tonight. Only God can change an individual. And what prevents couples or spouses from changing? Ignorance was my first one on tonight. And then, lady, I think that your first one had to do a lot with hangups. And then you went right on in with your second one with language. How do we speak to each other and how important that is for each other on tonight? And then my second one was idolatry, because all too often we believe about what we see on the other side is better than what we're seeing right now. And the relationship that we have, we got to learn how to water our own garden gardens and till our own yards and tend to our own grass. I want to put up a couple of things that I think that would work very well in terms of helping couples to be able to walk through this, and then we'll give the last one. I got another video I want to share tonight, and these are 20 little things that can help keep oneness together in the relationship with couples. I want you all to take a look at this one here. Wow, let's see if I can work this out that way. There we go. Yeah, 20 things that you can do together that will help keep you all together. You can see the number one, first one, you laugh together daily. The comedian in this relationship, you all would think that as an extrovert and charismatic people person that I am always the person that's cracking jokes. But somebody next to me, that's why she's laughing. She could have her own comedy show.
Comedian, undercover.
You undercover, okay? You eat meals as a team, eating together. That's important. Come back to establishing date nights and putting those things together, taking each other out on dates. I know some of we just so tired so lately that we make our dates on Sunday evenings and sometime on Friday evenings. We don't even go nowhere. But we got favorite shows that we watch together. And then one of our favorite meals in between the two of us is popcorn. Yep. And so we'll eat popcorn and we'll watch. Look at this. You send midday check-ins, text messages, DMs, comment on each other's social media posts, video each other. Messenger is how we're able to keep up with each other every day. You find out what's going on for you all. With the two of you. I'm glad they put this one in here for you. You hug often, because somebody, I won't explain what it's a GPG show.
Let me tell you now, in order to get the benefit from a hug, it has to be at least 20 seconds. I saw that on TikTok. My kids say I believe TikTok too much. But I saw one of these advertisements. It was talking about couples. And it said if you hold, you're supposed to hug for at least 20 seconds. And that's when you start to get the serotonin levels affected, and your motivation, your energy levels change. But things change when you hold each other. And so hugging is a very important part. Even for our children, when we hold on to our children, we hug them, it gives them some affirmation. And so we want to engage.
Zamira is a hugger. Zamira is a hugger.
Ben is too, actually.
Ben is a hugger? Yeah, well, I'll let him hug you. Don't let me.
But even with, you always pray together. One thing I truly believe is that we truly do forfeit. You know how in softball, when you didn't have enough players on one team, they forfeited the game. But we forfeit battles. We forfeit things when we don't pray together. One shall chase 1,000, two shall chase 10,000. And so you really have to get into the practice of prayer, the practice of it together. It also builds the intimacy. So these are very good things. You holding hands was another one that the little AI thing did. But the holding hands also builds intimacy.
Celebrate the small wins. Talk about your dreams, flirt often. I guess I'm the one that could be guilty of that one. Let me just go back to that hugging. You can't hug me for 20 seconds and then go on off to work. Something else got to happen after that 20 seconds. Come on, leave me some hearts and thumbs in the chat. If you on my side with that, give me a vote, heart and thumbs in the chat. You hugging me for 20 seconds and then you're going to roll out and go on over to the job. No, something else got to take place. So you apologize quickly, you forgive fully, you sit close at night, you listen with patience, you encourage their passions, you hold hands in public. There's one you say thank you often. There was another one up here about sharing chores. I came in from Sunday and there was some trash that needed to be cleaned up. And so I just went on ahead, put my little gloves on, got on down there and got to cleaning up the trash. I ain't going to tell you who put the bag out there. I'm going to just leave that alone. Let that be that. You remember tiny details. Here, this is her. You share silly jokes. When I tell you, this is the comedian in the relationship, and she can have a whole stand-up comedy show by herself and laugh at her own jokes.
Laughter is good like a medicine.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Johnson.
Laughter is good like a medicine, dear. It is good like a medicine.
It is good like a medicine.
Let me show one more that will help couples, I believe, stay together and be together and make sure that these are those that can help each individual change so the relationship can change. Go ahead.
I do want to say this before we go too far. Can we change the other person? Sometimes a person can change as a result of you standing firm in being who you are. If it's loving, you stay loving. Even if they're acting a fool, you stay loving. You know, the Bible talks about how an unsaved person is saved by the conversation of the spouse or the wife. And in those instances, yes, somebody can change, but we need to not discount the fact that if we continue to do right, people have sometimes, you know how the Bible talks about you heap coals of fire when somebody's
upon
doing
their
wrong
heads.
upon their heads.
Yes.
Keep doing Proverbs. The right thing.
Yeah.
Even when the other one, and I'm talking about in a marriage committed relationship, I'm not talking about fly by night things, but keep doing the right thing, and something will start to melt in their heart that says, you know what, maybe I do need to change this part of me. There, I think we ourselves can't do it. It's the work of the Holy Spirit through us that's doing it. But the minute that we try to chip and chisel and do that, that's manipulation.
Yes.
And so we have to let the other person come to that change on their own as a result of us just being who God called us to be.
Be steady and consistent. One of the things that you can do in helping the Holy Spirit to tenderize is your consistency. And so a lot of times we answered it this: are there boundaries and barriers that prevent people from changing? If so, what will it take? And so there are some who argue circumstances, situations, crucibles, and crises. A lot of times the Lord will use a crucible. I have been totally wrong to this person. Why are they? I'm trying to push them away. I'm trying to get them out of my space. I'm trying to figure out if they can be the one who breaks the relationship with me. But your consistency of love and grace and continuing to serve the person will help them come to a point. And it gets here with this. The reality is our response to these things is what produces the change. And our response heavily depends on our prayer lives. So as you continue to be consistent, then God has a chance to actually step in. And now you've given something for the Holy Spirit to work with your level of consistency. That works absolutely phenomenally in terms of producing it. So let me just show this one more video, and then we'll give our last one. Or I'll tell you what, let's give each one of our last ones first, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today, because I know men are like, look here, man, game is on. I understand, fellas. I'm getting it really quickly. So here it is. Intimacy. Some of us have too many intimate partners and have not gone through enough detox and continue the comparison game. We have a whole lot that is still psychologically and emotionally and spiritually within us that keeps us from changing, because we're comparing our now with where we were, which keeps us from getting to the betterment of the now that can be next. And we keep looking at what's going to be out there in the future rather than focusing in on healing and developing and growing and maturing and becoming one with where you are right now. And so I would say the impacts of intimacy is what will keep people from changing. Go ahead, your last one.
My last one, so at HALT, my last one is time. The amount of time you spend with the person matters. If you got to chase that person down all through the day and try to wonder where they are, and then when you get home at night, one person's going in one way, you're going the other way. What kind of time, quality time, are you spending? Sometimes the quantity of time can be interrupted because of work and schedules and things, but what is the quality time that you're spending with the person? We know over time, people start to look alike. That's what they say, that you start to look like brother and sister. But what kind of quality time are you spending? And it's,
I guess we kissing cousins then. I guess what that is.
You know what? But you the comedian tonight, huh? But the time, even your you start talking or saying things that the other person says.
Mannerisms.
Right. Your mannerisms start to mimic the other because you're with them so often. I said something, the kids were like, that's what Pastor Ray says. But you're with them a long time, you start talking like the other person. That should happen even when we're praying with God. We ought to talk like him. We ought to spend enough time with them that we're talking like him. In our relationships, we are a reflection one of the other. And so everywhere we go, we ought to know that we represent our spouse. And so if we're going to talk bad about our spouse in front of somebody, you're talking bad about yourself. That's the process of the oneness that we're talking about, that we have to see ourselves as one. We have to see ourselves. A lot of times we don't see ourselves as one. But the time that you spend with the other person, you're learning their habits, their quirks, what they like, what they don't like. And you're just, the familiarity, that's the familiarity you want with the other person. You want to miss them when they're gone. If that person is gone from the house, you're like, oh, good, they're gone. So you got to check, what's going on. Now, sometimes, let me be real about this. Yeah. Sometimes for women, when the man is away doing something else, we can get a whole lot more done because we're not in demand so much. Yeah. But we can get more, just like when the children are away, we can get some things done.
I'll be chasing around. I'll be chasing around.
Yeah, but I'm not, I'm not talking. It's the time, that quality time that you want to spend with the other person.
Yes. Which is to say, you can't be watching the next episode of Percy Jackson without me, just because I'll be busy and stuff. Okay.
I waited. Okay. I almost. Look, I waited.
You got help. Sunita says quality time is so essential.
It is.
She says that's so good right there. Not only do you have to protect what you say to your spouse, but you need to protect what you say about your spouse to other people. That is good right there.
You got to be careful who you say what you say.
Who you say what you say to concerning your spouse. This is Teresa again. That's good right there. She's saying that's good right there. Well, listen, we get ready to wind down tonight because we've been spending time talking about relationships and should spouses try to change each other? No. If not, why? We've given you a litany and a list of those. We kind of gave 20 things that would help couples actually come together and produce the change in each other. This last one, when it comes down to the importance of why prayer and scripture matters, let me go with this one right here first. There we go. Let me see if I can play it again. Yeah. So when you look at these, let me see if I can fix this one so it'll come in. There we go. Yeah. So I believe that these scriptures, I'm going to move through these slowly because I'm going to give somebody a chance to screenshot these. Because praying for your marriage, Thessalonians 5:11. Jot these scriptures down. Forgiving your spouse, Matthew 16:14 through 15. Patience with each other, 1 Corinthians 13:4. Facing trials together, Ecclesiastes 4:9. Somebody like, where is that? That's in the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes. Seeking wisdom, James 1:5. But seek wisdom first from God and then from models and examples that are proven. Being kind and compassionate, Ephesians 4:32. Finding peace in conflict, Matthew 5:9. Resisting temptation, 1 Corinthians 10:13. And finding joy in the little things, Proverbs 17:22. And putting God first, that would be Matthew 6.
Finding joy in the little things is in there twice.
And there twice.
Here and there.
Yeah, finding joy in the little things. So because a lot of times we look for the great, big, grander moments, grandiose moments, when it's the little things that helps to communicate the love to each other and the concern to each other. Seek to be able to find the little things in the dynamic of the relationship that you find yourself in with your spouse. We hope that this has been helpful tonight. We realize that we got a whole lot more that we can share, but we don't have as much time. And so we want to tell you all to hang in there with each other, be able to stay together well with each other, realizing that it is the Holy Spirit that produces the change in relationships. We hope to see you all again. Take care. We'll see you soon.
God bless you. Bye-bye.